Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is or you have got a bit lost. Welcome, everyone. I'm Chatty. Welcome to my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, where I'm going to be chatting away madly about part 2 of my segmented studies. So this is my version of a vlog, because I can't vlog, because I can't compile things together. Because on this channel, I only do one-shots for my long videos. I can't edit. My computer is too old for it. So cheers, everyone. Clink, clink, clink. I only have the power of pause to aid me with any attempts at special effects. So we will see how this goes. So the vlog or segmented study is for the Magical Readathon Orilium, created by G from Book Roast. I have all the details linked in the description so you can find out more if you want to. I always love sort of documenting these and taking part in this readathon. I find it a huge amount of fun. So the second book that I needed to read was, it would help if I was prepared, wouldn't it? What was it? That is the question. Wasn't that one, so it was the one before. PioLurs, Sirloip, my character, is studying to be a star whisperer. So that is what I'm focusing on. So the book that I've just finished for the prompt was Psionics and Divination. There we go. So for Psionics and Divination, for Star Whisperer Calling, I need to read to a level D. And PioLurs decided that actually the lesson he was most excited about was the Omen lesson. So he went straight to the D level and just jumped O and Q. But we're going to go back and do them, so it's going to be completely fine. The reason that I decided to do that was because the book I've chosen, I am buddy reading with the wonderful Tiffany from Towering TBR, and so I needed to, I wanted to read it when she was reading it, so that's when it happened. So I've made allowances for this one because the actual prompt is the Omen is a lily, so you need to read a book with a lily on the cover or lily in the name of the author or the title, and I don't have that. So I just went for a girl's name in the title, and I went for Julia and the Shark. So I'm not going to record it on G's Book Roast where she collates everything we've read, because it's not really fitting a prompt, but it's fitting the prompt enough for me to feel like I'm completing what I need to complete, because otherwise I'm making myself read books that I just don't want to read, or buy books or borrow books when it's just not going to work for me. So there we go. That is my justification for all of this. Anyway, this was the next book I read, and I had a great time buddy reading this with Tiffany. It was really fun. We read it kind of in 5 chapters and then spoke about the 5 chapters, and it was a really good time. It's a middle grade, it's a contemporary, and it deals with the theme of mental health. That was all I knew going in. I knew there was going to be some kind of mental health representation in here. I had an inkling it was the mum. But other than that, I did really not know what to expect. I did know that it has been highly, highly praised by quite a few people. This is the book that Alice from Alice and the Giant bookshelf really, really raves about and has sort of like on her bookshelf in kind of pride of place. And when people were talking about middle grade March favourites, it was definitely one that she picked and championed. And I can absolutely see why. Not only is it the writing of Kieran Millward-Hargrave really beautiful, but like the story is a very emotional story, and I thought the mental health representation was done really, really well. That's not to say that myself and Tiffany didn't find a couple of things that kind of just stretched us a little bit, but I'm absolutely willing to overlook them because the overall story was so fantastic. So we're going to go into spoilers because I want to talk about sort of like more specific things, and I also really want to show you some of the fantastic illustrations in here as well. So if you want to read this book and you don't want to kind of like be spoilt in any way, are they going to be full spoilers or mild spoilers? I don't know. I'll let you know if it changes. No, I should make a decision, shouldn't I? Are they going to be full spoilers or mild? I don't know, because I don't really know what I'm going to say yet. I'm just going to talk, so I don't know. So if you're someone that likes absolutely no spoilers whatsoever, please just stop now. Just know the mental health representation was great. It's got themes of family and themes of friendship and bullying, and the writing is just really, I don't know what the right word is, apart from beautiful. but it's not like overly flowery. It's just kind of the imagery that's created. And I think the way Julia's feelings as well of being explored, like what it's like to be kind of experiencing a parent suffering, and you're aware that grown-ups are dealing with things that they don't want to talk about in front of you, but it makes you feel uncomfortable. I just thought all of that was encapsulated so well. So spoilers. We have Julia and her parents who have gone all the way to Scotland, the Isle of Sheppey, as far as possibly can. They're closer to Norway than anything else to spend the summer, because the dad's an electrician and needs to fix the lighthouse. It's got an automatic lamp and it needs kind of rewiring or something, so he's dealing with that. But Julia's mum has a grant from the university to go and find this particular shark, whose name I really should check. Is it like the green? I'm going to find the shark name. So they're called Greenland sharks, and they can live to a really old age. And Julia's mum is particularly keen to find these sharks. One, because they're very rare. She's a marine biologist. She's very interested in them. But two, she is hoping to get a sample to kind of study the genes, in the hope that it can help cure or like provide help for people who suffer with dementia. So you get a little bit of a backstory kind of like woven in about how she lost her mum to dementia, and it obviously had a really big impact on so Julia's maternal grandma, on her life, and feels very strongly about it. I really appreciated kind of just the seeds that were sown about things. Like Julia often refers to something if it's a bit crazy. She goes, "Oh my goodness, that's mad," and mum's like, "Don't say that word." And she gives her other words to use instead that kind of more specifically describe that word. So you can kind of see her sensitivity around it. She's so full of life. The first few chapters you have of Julia and her mum, they are really fun together. They're silly together. She's got a really fun way of looking at the world. She has an expression that I am absolutely taking. So, you know, if you heard the expression when you want someone to get a move on, you go, "Get a wiggle on." She says, "Come on, my jewel, we need to get a sparkle on." It's like, I'm taking that. I'm going to get a sparkle on. What a fun way of telling someone to move quickly. But she's silly, and you can see that Julia just adores her mum. Not just from like how they interact together. They have a little bit of, "Oh my goodness, mum's being embarrassing now," moments, but it feels really natural. It feels really heartfelt. And you can just see that she just adores spending time with her mum. She's really interested in marine biology as well, and has a little notebook where she puts facts in it. And so you can just see all this how all this is built up, which really helps for when things start to go downhill for the family. So it turns out Julia's mum does not have a grant. So there is a funding issue. So she's applying for funding while she's here trying to study the shark, trying to go out on people's boats. And some things lead to another, and her parents are kind of arguing a bit more. One thing I really enjoyed about this as well is how Julia talks about her mum really enjoying words, and her dad really enjoying numbers, and this kind of idea of like what words can do and what numbers can do. And so whilst her mum is dealing with all of that, Julia is kind of feeling slightly put to one side because her mum is starting to be really engrossed and kind of taken over with this fascination of trying to find the Greenland shark. And Julia's not getting as much as her mum's time as she did before, and is feeling kind of slightly more put to the side. She does make a friend. So there's a library / laundry place in here, and she makes a friend with a boy called Kin. Hold on, I really should know his name. It's going to come to me in a moment. Kin, yeah, it is Kin. It is Kin. And his family is of Indian heritage, and he is bullied by some local children because of this. So him and Julia make friends. Kin really enjoys stargazing and has lots of facts about the stars, and they sort of like to meet on the balcony of the lighthouse and look at the stars together, and they get on really well. There are moments when their friendship is seems quite fragile because of certain things. Kin seems very sensitive to certain things. So there's a moment when Julia says something and it upsets him. But what I do like is that they talk about it and then kind of move on and just are like, yeah, understand their sensitivity behind it. But there is a kind of another point further on where Julia is also bullied by the bully and confronts the bully, and basically kind of finds sort of like a weak spot in the bully, says something that starts to upset him, and she goes, right, well, this is how make him stop bullying us. I can see this is bothering him, so I'm going to go with it, not realizing that she was actually referring to something that happened to him that has made him kind of lash out at people. And everyone else on the island knows it, but of course Julia just coming there doesn't. But Kin kind of acts like that was really bad, and she's like, well, I'm really sorry, I didn't know. But he still kind of acts like she's done something. Well, she has done something bad, but she didn't mean to. She didn't do it like maliciously or deliberately. And they were both being bullied, and she was standing up to her friend. So I felt a little bit like Kin was a bit harsh on that point. But it was this really kind of like nice exploration that just because someone's done something to you, it doesn't mean that you can be mean back. So that was a nice concept to be explored. And there is a confrontation with the bully, and not a confrontation with the bully, like there is a fallout from that, and there is kind of a resolution. I felt like it kind of happened too quickly. Like I would have felt really uncomfortable in that situation if I was Julia, and it was interesting just how quickly the bully kind of turned around. But that's not the main point of the story, and kind of we needed to be moving on, so we kind of didn't have time to dwell there. So it was a really nice kind of resolution to it, but I felt I needed it just to be eked out a little bit more so I could find it a bit more believable, because it just felt a little bit too easily tidied up. But like I said, that's not the main part of the story. You really start to see like the mum spiraling down, like the excitement that she's kind of wound up in. You can see like the hypermania-ness of it. Like she seems very kind of brittle and over energized and not really listening to anyone else. So you can pick up on all those signs, and Julia starts to say that her mum kind of is sort of drifting away from her, like she's not her mum, she's sort of losing her mum a little bit to the shark. And what I really love in the illustrations, so all of the illustrations are done in black and white, and then you have this lovely yellow pop of colour. So there's a lovely one of the lighthouse here, and I really enjoy how the words are just here in the beam. But what's done beautifully is this kind of representation of the shark. So Julia starts having nightmares of this shark sort of coming in the room and kind of swimming under her bed and sort of upsetting her bed. So I think Julia's feelings here are perfectly kind of portrayed in this image of her just kind of all curled up, just this small yellow person in her pajamas just in this bed in this big space, and here coming through the doorway is the shark. And it just kind of feels like the shark has got this like representation of sort of impending doom, or like the growing depression cloud kind of coming in and swooping over the family. Like it's building, something is building, and it is going to explode. And the writing is kind of done in italics, like a little poem almost of her dreams and how she's feeling, and it kind of pulls them all together. So Julia's feelings and mood is kind of like affected a bit by her mum's behaviour, and I think it's really important, like it's not just someone who is suffering with mental health that is affected by it, it is their family as well, and how you manage that and how it feels. So it feels like such an important book, like reflecting on all of that. So here we have the poem of her dream, and then we've got this shark on the translucent paper here, and it fits the line of the poem. And I just love this image here where you've got the shark and you can just see the yellow pajamas of Julia underneath the shark that's sort of being swamped and taken over by this shark. And then when you turn the page, you can see her there asleep in bed once you've moved the shark out of the way. And then the shark is kind of over the words of the poem. I just think it's just so beautifully done. And it all kind of like leads on and kind of goes in the direction of a big event where everyone kind of has to face everything, and how Julia feels about her mum, hers and her mum's relationship. I love kind of like towards the end where Julia's talking about the smell, like her mum doesn't smell like her anymore, she doesn't feel like her anymore. The normal smells she associated with her mum have like become like her looking for the shark and like the boat, and it's almost like, and kind of entwined with the illness that is taking over, and it's almost like she can smell that on her. And just kind of this deterioration, I just love how the deterioration is kind of just described as this is looming. And it is hard to read. You do get very worried about what's going to happen, and you just feel kind of like the fear of Julia as well about everything. And there is a climax. There was a little bit that I wanted to read just because of, oh, where is it? Hold on one moment. So when I mentioned before about the numbers and words, I just really enjoyed this bit. "All right," said Captain Bjorn. "Well, I wish you luck, Miss Julia." He smiled warmly and left. I shut the door and unfolded the paper he'd given me. Yeah. And here we have some coordinates of where a shark was last sighted. I suddenly understood why Dad thought the numbers were so beautiful. Here it was, the shark Mum had searched for all these weeks. I stroked the paper and rummaged in Mum's coat pocket. So I just love that concept of the numbers being beautiful because of what it means, because of all of the effort and hope and everything that had been put into this. And then it was just this little bit of paper, and she just was like, these numbers are so beautiful. I just really love that idea. So there we go. It's mild spoilers, I would say. So there is a climax, and there is a resolution. And if you need to know whether it's a tragic book or a happy book, I will let you know. But if you don't want to know, skip ahead now. So the conclusion is happy, just in case you were worried that you wouldn't be able to read it because it would be too sad. It is okay, but obviously the subject matter can affect you. So there. Okay, cool. I'm going to let everyone else come back who didn't want to know that. And one thing I also really enjoyed at the end is there is information from the author and illustrator. So we have acknowledgements, and we have a little bit from Kieran Millward-Hargrave and Tom DeFreston, who are actually married. So I think it's lovely that they've done this book together. And it talks about, and then it talks about the mental illness in here, particularly talking about the one that Julia's mum has, and that both Kieran Millward-Hargrave and Tom DeFreston have suffered from mental illness as well, and it has some useful websites on here. It also has some information about sharks and finding out more about nature. So I just really enjoyed that extra bit kind of at the end of the book. So this was absolutely gorgeous. I cannot wait to read more Kieran Millward-Hargrave. I have The Girl of Ink and Stars kind of linked in as one of my prompts, not for Star Whisperer, I think it's for Scribe, and I think it's for an extra one, so it's probably not going to be for a while, but I will be reading it. So I'm really delighted to have finally read Kieran Millward-Hargrave. It's great. And it was done so well. It was really, really beautiful. I had a great time chatting with Tiffany about it. We were sort of going towards the end. I'm a bit scared something is going to happen and it's just going to be so yes, it was a really good book and I highly, highly recommend. So the next class that PioLurs is going to be studying from is the extra class that he's taken. So it's not a Star Whisperer class, but it's one I'm including, and that is Alchemy. For Alchemy level O, you must turn copper into silver and read a book that is the first in a series. And for this I have chosen Sing Me to Sleep by Gabby Burton.
This is a YA fantasy.
And that was a mix-up because level O is not copper to silver, that's level Q. Level O is actually stone to copper. So there we go, stone to copper, read the first book in a series. So this worked perfectly because Sing Me to Sleep is the buddy read I'm doing with Vadania Silverscribe and Chloe from Phantom of the Pages. We all get fairy loot, and so we like to try and encourage us to keep reading our fairy loot instead of admiring them from the shelves. And this is one that was chosen for us to read next. And it happens to be the first in a series, which is marvellous. And I was so excited. I've never heard of this book before, but when I opened my fairy loot box and saw this, I was immediately drawn into the cover and intrigued. And then when I read the synopsis, I was so excited to read it. It just sounds awesome. So it's full on fantasy world right from the get-go. We have a map because, of course, who doesn't love a map? So here we go. Here's this island, and we have this magical barrier around the island, keeping everything out and protecting it, but also keeping everyone in there in. And we follow our protagonist, Saoirse. It was Saoirse. I felt like an idiot after not knowing how to pronounce it, but yes, it was Saoirse. And Saoirse is a siren, but she's a secret siren because sirens are kind of like outlawed and not wanted on the island. She's the only one, and she is constantly having to like fight the draw of water that wants to make her kill people. And it is really fascinating reading right from the get-go. So I've read the first 2 chapters, and we have first of all, I just want to show you this. We have a little C kind of burst at the headings of each chapter, and we are introduced to Saoirse. She is sneaking. We get to see her straight away, like on an assignment. She is hired herself out as an assassin and has assassinated someone with her siren powers, and then she's used this magical bead that she kind of puts behind her tooth that kind of changes her appearance. So her allure is toned down and kind of pulled in, and she has a scar on her face to kind of hide who she is, so people don't recognize her and see her as a siren. She is passing as water fae, but with no affinity for that particular element and power. So if you don't have an affinity for one of the elements, then I think you're called, I think it's Ithka. So Ithka are described as like powerless and kind of seen as like runts and like lesser fae. So on the island you have fae, you have witches, and you have humans, and that is the pecking order. So you have elemental fae, Ithka fae, witches, and humans. The fae like witches because they have magic and witchcraft, but are heavily kind of clamping down on them, and humans are treated as slave labour. So it's a really interesting setup to start off with. There's intrigue around her sister Rain, who we immediately see Saoirse does everything for, like, she is the focus of Saoirse's world. Like, Saoirse will do anything to support her sister, and everything she does is for her sister. So her sister's very much got that, you know, that feeling of like the hope and life and the purity of the world and the reason for you to do everything. And there's this kind of concept that they need to hide her identity, but I don't think she's a siren, because there's a big deal made of like Saoirse's particular story, Saoirse seeing herself as a monster, and that she's the only siren, so she can't be a siren. But I'm intrigued, what is she? Is she some other kind of creature? Is she, there's a mystery that we don't know yet around her. Saoirse is a soldier in these barracks, and they're going to be having their kind of like trial and kind of qualifier to then be given a job. So it's a really interesting setup straight away. I'm really enjoying it. The writing's got me sucked in. Can't wait to see what happens. However, as it's a buddy read, we are reading up to 16 chapters, and then we're going to stop, we're going to talk about it, then we're going to read on. So I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to finish it. So that means there's another opening for a book that I could be reading.
Astronomy. To achieve level O in astronomy, you must study the moon song ritual. You must read a book that contains a word from the title of the last song you listened to. And if you saw my TBR, you will know that I picked out the song Jiggle Jiggle by Louis Theroux. Funnily enough, that did not fit any of my prompts, so again, I'm bending the rules and I'm going for Jiggle Jiggle was about my money don't jiggle jiggle, it folds, so I've gone with Making Money from Terry Pratchett.
So this is going to be a reread for me, but I haven't read from this copy, and I've only read it once, so I haven't read it in a really long time. And I read Going Postal last year, intending to read the whole of the Moist One Lipwick trilogy, but it didn't happen. So I'm very keen to carry on. It's a very nice hardback. We have red end pages. Anything interesting on the spine? No, but it's always nice to check. I'm a massive Pratchett fan, really love all his books, really enjoyed the Moist trilogy. I think Going Postal is my favourite, but I'm very keen to read this one and then just enjoy this reread again. Please let me know what you are reading for these prompts, and I will see you in the next video. Happy reading, everyone!